Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC 270. I'm Paul Shaughnessy, joined on the line by Cody Saftic, as always. Breaking down. I mean, we were joking about it before the show started. You got the heavyweights, you got the flyweights, you got, the pinnacle of little guys and the pinnacle of big guys. Well, guys that can at least make 265 pounds. So top of the bill is pretty impressive this week.
Yeah, quite the contrast. You got your heavyweights and you got your flyweights, and then you've got 11 other fights in between. No, not in between, but before them, I suppose. It's a nice looking loaded card. I know the first UFC of the year was last week, I guess. Giga Chikadze versus Calvin Kattar, and kind of like an appetizer, a little bit of a pint-sized serving, get you going, get you excited again. Good fights. But now when you look at some of the names on this UFC 270, you see some of the matchups. A lot to be excited about. So hopefully we can sniff out who are going to be the potential apple pie shitters and make this one a good one.
Yeah, before we get into the fights here, make sure you smash the like button. Tell us in the comments section who you like in the main event. And leave an Apple review. Pat always tells me Apple reviews, they really help out the show. We don't ask for anything else. Go leave a 5-star Apple review. Wherever you download podcasts, it helps us to bring the show to you guys every single week. And there's a little promo a little bit later. You'll hear Pat's dulcet tones tell you about a little promo at DraftKings Sportsbook. So be on the lookout for that. All right, main event action. We've got the title unification. I mean, the most ridiculous, stripping of Francis Ngannou, but we got Ciryl Gane as a minus 155 favorite. Francis Ngannou can be had 4+ 135. Cody loves narratives. Narrative Nation would tell you that, the UFC is kind of looking for a way to get out of the Francis Ngannou business. They don't like his manager, yada, yada, yada. Ciryl Gane was an underdog in this spot, I don't know, maybe like a month ago. Like it wasn't too long ago. And people have just been steaming that action. At the end of last week's episode, what didn't make it to air is me and you fighting with each other about what happens and what is the right play in this main event. So I'm just gonna throw it over to you. You're gonna tell me why you're betting Ciryl Gane as a minus 155 favorite against the most potent power puncher in UFC history, and then I'll just take some notes here, Cody, and then I'll combat you in a minute. So yeah, tell me why Gane is the play at minus 155.
Okay, man, we've been down this road before, so let's kick it off. So Francis Ngannou, once upon a time, he's our boy. Comes into the UFC, you dub him Frankie Murder right off the hop, and he is just drubbing fools. Once upon a time, I won't name his name because it's embarrassing in hindsight, but very well-known MMA media member, and Paul Shaughnessy get into a discussion, and it's Anthony Hamilton versus Francis Ngannou. Well-said member says, Anthony Hamilton, dude, former wrestling champion, Jackson Winklejohn, going to have a great game plan. This other guy's one-dimensional. Paul goes out, talks all types of ridiculous smack, and ever since then, Francis Ngannou was his guy. But you and I used to drub on the fact that he's young. So even though he's super raw and even though he doesn't have the experience or the skill set yet, he's so young that he's just going to accrue experience as he goes, knocking out people. That's what he's doing. He's rising. He has this huge profile. And we get to the Stipe Miocic fight. First time we disagree, right? You go with your boy Francis Ngannou. I got to go with my Croatian brethren, Stipe Miocic. And it just take down City, right? A flaw in Francis's game. Both of us take him against Derek Lewis, as I think most people did, and he just completely comes out shallow. Since then, this is his chance to rebuild himself, get that experience, do all these things. My opinion, he's got a string of quick knockouts and then nothing. He's not fighting all that much, right? Curtis Blades, 45 seconds. Cain Velasquez, 26 seconds. Junior Dos Santos, a minute 11. Jairzinho Rosenstruck, 20 seconds. No real cage time in the in-between that. So now we get the Stipe Miocic rematch. I stick with my boy Stipe. You stick with your boy Francis. You make me look foolish, but in many ways, it looked like he was tiring to me not a minute and a half. Halfway through the second round, Francis has already exerted a ton of energy, a ton of muscle, hit Stipe with some good shots. And the flip side is Stipe is absolutely concussed at this point and about to topple over. Francis gets the win. I can't say it's super impressive. The highlight reel is there, but I can't say there's enough substance, ring time, cage time. by conversation, Ciryl Gane's also 7-0 in the UFC. He's got 7 fights. Francis Ngannou's got 13 fights. And yet Francis has been in the UFC for a real long time. Ciryl just broke out on the scene. But it's the activity rate. It's going 5 rounds with Alexander Volkov. It's going deeper into fights and seeing what you got. And his risk-averse style should allow him to not play it safe, but avoid the majority of the damage. Because, Paul, damage is incoming. I think we all know damage is going to come. But you got to take the least amount that you can, tire this guy out, take him out. Precision versus power. That's Conor McGregor's line, but I think that's how this one really plays out. You got the strongest guy the UFC's probably ever seen power-wise in Francis Ngannou. And I wouldn't say the most technical guy the UFC's ever seen in Ciryl Gane. But for a heavyweight, movement, just stuff you don't see at heavyweight, right? Good footwork, good cardio, sharp, precise, not looking for a quick knockout. A guy that's going to drag you into deeper waters. And I think that's where this fight plays out, is the deeper waters. So I got to go. Yeah, I am going with Ciryl Gane. Minus 155 for a guy that's challenging for the belt. I don't think he's sitting champions Francis Ngannou. So yeah, do I want the challenger at minus 155? Like, no, it doesn't seem great. But again, Francis has got power. We know that, right? Does he got technique? Well, when you watch the fights, Paul, no, he actually doesn't have technique. He just has got so much power. So if he clips you, he's the definition of a puncher's chance. Absolutely. You're getting plus money on a puncher's chance. I can't fault you for that. But I got to go with the speed, the precision, and just the better all-around skill set. So sign me up for Ciryl Gane. And where I was going with he was so young, Francis, when he first started out and we loved him. He's 35 years old now and is lucky to fight once a year. So I wouldn't say he's past his prime. I just think the torch is about to be passed to the younger, more active guy in Ciryl Gane, and I'm going to be behind it.
All right, the Miocic fight, saying that he was gassed, that was the best he's ever looked by a long shot. Stipe tried to shoot in a whole bunch. He definitely took the pace down considerably. Like, he was much more calculated with his approach. He didn't rush. He didn't force anything too much. He wasn't running around the cage. He wasn't putting himself in a situation to be absolutely gassed. He went 5 rounds with Stipe Miocic, which just proves the durability that this guy has. And he was still able to, when he landed like a shot in like round 4 of their first fight, it still like stunned Stipe a little bit. The power carries over to the later rounds, in my opinion. Basically what this really comes down, it's just basically a math play, is that I'm of the opinion that Francis Ngannou against any person on earth, when Francis Ngannou is wearing 4-ounce gloves, has at least a 50-50 shot to knock them out. I mean, the guy's power and speed combination of the two is unlike anything that we've ever seen in the UFC. Can Ciryl Gane play Matador versus the Bull, fight a technical fight, use those kicks? You're going to see a lot of the kicks, a lot of the front kicks to the legs, keeping him away, using that distance. And the big cage at the Honda Center in Anaheim is... It's huge for Gane. Having those extra, I think it's like 30% bigger than the small cage that they have at the Apex. That is huge for Gane. That is 100% huge for Gane. But I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, are you gonna be shocked? I know that, and you didn't even talk about like these guys training together in the past. I'm sure.
I was just about to go there. Yep.
I'm sure Ciryl Gane got the best of him when they're sparring, because you're not trying to kill somebody when you're sparring. When you're Francis Ngannou, you can't play 80%. When you throw 80% and up, like, you're hurting people. So I think this takes place on the feet. Ciryl Gane, of course he could win. He has, the cage advantage, being bigger. He's going to be able to circle around the outside. It just takes one. And Francis Ngannou, I see DraftKings Sportsbook's got plus 175 on Francis Ngannou by knockout. That's a play. And as the week goes on, as the narrative continues to grow, they want Francis Gane. I mean, right. You know what the best way to turn around your fortunes when it comes to a negotiation? Knock out the interim champion in the first round, and then what are they supposed to do? They're gonna have to pay their man. So Francis Ngannou for me. Ciryl Gane for you. I've never bet against either one of these guys, but you're giving me the plus money, and I don't blame the people who jumped on like Ciryl Gane plus 115. I think that's a pretty solid bet. Now that you're getting up to minus 155, I just think that you're playing with fire if you load up on Ciryl Gane in this spot.
The last thing I want to ask you then, so we just broke it down style-wise. I think the style of Ciryl Gane is going to be able to prevail in those later rounds, pick him apart, tire him out. You think the style of Francis Ngannou, live power puncher, you think he can carry that power through 5 rounds, going to clip him at some point. So let's talk about the other narrative. UFC aside, okay? Fernand Lopez is straight up in yo boy's head, okay? Yo boy, this is not even going on just fight week. This has been going on for like 4 months, man.
That could all be staged. That could all be nonsense.
Potentially, right? But it just seems like he's got a chip on his shoulder, and Ngannou's talking this smack. And sparring session aside, it's like I think he's almost living rent free in Ngannou's head. And then 35-year-old Francis Ngannou says, "Well, if I'm going to re-sign with the UFC, I got to have a pro boxing clause." He's 35 years old. He's the UFC heavyweight champion. What's a pro boxing clause? Why? Does he actually think he could go over and beat a Deontay Wilder? Does he think he could go over and beat a Tyson Fury? Because it's a different animal, man. It's an absolutely different animal. Right. He
wants to get paid, and they're not giving him what he's due.
Which is why he fights once a year.
He looks at some of these other boxers, making the big bucks. He's not
thinking about the prize. He's looking at the money. He's looking at boxing. He's looking at just not keeping up a competitive schedule. And then beyond all that, this coach of my old coach seeking fame and fortune, he's in my ear, he's in my head. Listen, it only takes one, right? Does any of this affect anything? No. But I'm saying I just feel like Francis Ngannou is thinking about other stuff. And for Ciryl Gane, this is the biggest opportunity ever. That he goes undefeated, beats Francis Ngannou, and becomes a UFC heavyweight champion. Millions of dollars coming in.
Will it though? Because
of course, because you're the UFC heavyweight champion.
They just got out of this exact same situation where they didn't really like Stipe Miocic as the champion. Francis Ngannou gets it. Everyone goes, "Oh, they're gonna throw so much money at him." And then now we're in the exact same situation where they don't like the champion. They want to get another guy in. Why? Because they're like, "Oh, maybe this guy will want less money."
You know what could happen is that Ciryl Gane wins this fight in a stinker, like the Derek Lewis fight, right? Yeah. Stinker. Every time Francis swings, he's out of dodge. He stays on the outside. He kicks at the legs. He uses his jab. Stinker of a fight. Right. Now your heavyweight champs is in a stinker. And to be quite honest, one guy is a marketable heavyweight champion.
Volkov fight when they went to when it went to the cards. Dana, like in the press conference afterwards, was talking smack about. It's like, I don't know, man. Like they went 5 rounds and Ciryl Gane landed 135 significant strikes. Like that's.
The Derek Lewis fight was the same way, dude. He just absolutely methodically picked him apart, like surgically, and puts him down for TKO. So how much more could you want from that? But one guy swings bombs, and the other guy takes his time and defeats you down the stretch, right? And it's just like not as marketable. But Francis is the most marketable guy you could get. He's like your Mike Tyson. He's coming in. He's icing fools. He's got the look. He's got the background. He's got the personality. Perfect. Let's run with this guy. He just doesn't want to take the fights. Ciryl, meanwhile, it's not as appeasing. It's not as easy to market this guy to a casual fan base, but he'll fight all these guys. He's willing to fight them all. Sign me up for Volkov. They could sign him up for a Miocic rematch, or not rematch, but Stipe wants to fight. Throw him in there. Let him fight any of these guys. He wants to fight. So that's why the UFC wants to get behind this guy. It'd be way easier to market Francis. He's just unwilling to play. Ciryl, yeah, he is. But it doesn't matter what the UFC wants. It's how these guys pair up. Right. So we can talk narrative, and we did. And I think the narrative plays out towards Ciryl. And then as far as the actual fight itself, I'm obviously leaning Ciryl. But dude, you said it. When you get plus money on a power puncher, and this is the king of the power punchers, can't be mad with that, right?
And it's not even just that he's powerful. His speed is excellent, and he's just such a phenomenal athlete. Like that's the difference between him and Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis has power. But Francis is a much more crazy athlete, like world-class freak athlete. They're all at this level, of course. They're all freak athletes in their own right. But are we throwing a shoey on this one? Because it feels like we got.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 100%. We'll throw a shoey on this one, and may the best man win. Remember when Francis lost to Stipe the first time? The Lewis fight Dana almost cut him. Dana was like, man, this guy's out of it. And Francis himself, he's in my head. I got gassed against Stipe and my takedown. So against Lewis, he was gun shy, didn't pull the trigger, right? Because he's mental, right? This is his issue. I'm pretty sure I've made this clear at this point. He's in his own
coming
head.
off of a career best performance last time out. So is this going to be a mental?
But Fernand, now every time he swings something, he's thinking, what's Fernand thinking about that? What's Fernand thinking about that?
Come
it's like,
on.
It's not
like
it's going to be his demise.
Fernand isn't his dad anymore. He left his dad. He left him in the dust to go over to Vegas to get what he thought at the time was probably better training. But Fernand, no disrespect to Fernand. Anyway, we've talked about this one enough. Let's go on to the co-main event, a rematch between Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo. Interesting that Brandon Moreno is a minus 180 favorite here. Figueiredo can be had for plus 155. Obviously, I think Brandon Moreno is like a plus 200 underdog in the previous two matchups between these two guys. Obviously, first one ended in a draw. Deiveson kind of had the early rounds. And you go into the later rounds. There's the cage grab, I believe. Yeah, cage grab.
Low blow, right? Was
it a low blow? I mean, Figgy cheats all the time. I watched this fight. I just can't recall the exact foul right now.
Right.
So yeah, long story short, that point matters so much. We end up going to a draw. They fight again, and I mean, I've seen some people talking about how they're like, they saw a picture of Figueiredo flexing, and they're like, oh, he must have been hurt last time. It's just like, I was watching last fight, and I'm not gonna lie, like, Figueiredo looked jacked, and he looked similarly jacked to the photo that he released the other day. So it's like, I'm not buying into much to the fact that he, completely, there was something, he was injured or anything like that. But yeah, this fight plays out similar to the first one. Like, Deiveson Figueiredo was well on his way to scraping by at least a decision win. So at plus 155, it's going to be an interesting fight. Don't fall off of a cliff. The problem with Brandon Moreno as a matchup for Figueiredo is a flyweight finisher, and Brandon Moreno's durability is second to none. So I understand why he's the favorite. If I had to force a bet on this fight, I would bet probably Figueiredo at plus money, but I think it's a better spot to monitor what's going on in the live market and play it that way. What about you?
So potentially that's a good way of attacking it. But no, I'm team Brandon Moreno. And actually, I bet Brandon Moreno the first time around, UFC 256. Again, this is the key here, is that with Figueiredo, he's got two moves. He's got a nasty guillotine choke, and he's got just a bomb of a right hand. Actually, he's got power in both hands, but he's got big power for 125 pounds and a nasty guillotine choke. That's what carries him through. With Brandon Moreno, he's got a cast iron chin. Submission defense has definitely come a long way. I mean, he's turning into one of these guys that just scrambles out of all these positions. His own jiu-jitsu is very, very high level. Yeah, I mean, like, what's there not to like? He's going to take him into deeper waters. That's the plan. Now, Figueiredo's had pretty much the biggest issues going against him through his career is that terrible weight cuts. Making 125 is devastating for this guy because he's huge. And as a result, bad cardio. So my whole plan in the first fight was lose probably the first couple rounds. So I pre-bet him, lose the first couple rounds, hit a live bet. First couple rounds, Brandon Moreno loses. Third round, I would say Brandon Moreno is losing, but it is the closest of the rounds to this point. You can see Moreno's tightening it up, and then Figgy loses a point. So now you've got 2 rounds Figgy and a point deduction, even round. Fourth and fifth round, those are Brandon Moreno's rounds, perfect. The rematch is a continuation of that, but now instead of getting a plus 275 ticket, which was Moreno in the first fight, it was a plus 155 ticket Moreno in the second fight. We go with the same narrative. Pre-bet Brandon Moreno, and this is where I screwed up. Brandon Moreno by decision, and Brandon Moreno, we're going to live bet him. Only the second fight, Paul, doesn't look anything like the first one. Moreno wins the first round. Now you can't live bet him because he's already the favorite at this point. And then he puts him away. He just like tires him out, dominates him in the third round, smashes him with a good ground and pound, takes his back, chokes him out. So I lost. So, unfortunately I did lose the decision prop on that one, but he looked awesome. And here's the key difference to me. The first time they fought, everyone's so high on Figgy, but Brandon Moreno's 26 years old, and the guy is only getting better. You saw him in The Ultimate Fighter once upon a time. He's in his early 20s, like 21, 22. Fights Pantoja on the show, tooth and nail. Fights Pantoja again in the UFC. He's fought Murderer's Row. He's fought some of the best guys in the division, and he's only getting better. He has moved back to Entrom in Mexico, but he's got cardio for days, and he's just making a lot of improvements. When they announced, first Mexican-born UFC champion, it's like deservedly so. This guy's been groomed up in the UFC, taking hard matchups, improving, getting better. Now he's 28. Sky is the limit for him. Figgy, I can't compare him to Francis in this case because Francis is a heavyweight. And 35, not that old, man. Let's be real here. But Figgy's 34-year-old flyweight. And what you're seeing with Figgy is the weight cuts ain't getting any easier. That big power and that big guillotine choke, if it doesn't get him out of trouble in the first round or two, it's just not there. And to see the decline from fight to fight, I don't know. So now he gets up with Fight Ready MMA. He changes camps. He's training with Henry Cejudo. But if you've seen any of the UFC preview stuff that they filmed on him, he's arrogant, man. He's just one of these I'm the best kind of guys. And this guy got lucky twice. The draw I should have won, but a point deduction. The second fight I was injured. I wasn't feeling good. I'm going to crush him this time. To me, I'm seeing regression in Figgy's game, and I'm seeing just massive improvements from Brendan Moreno every time out. So, yeah, I do have Brendan Moreno. Minus 185, I don't think it's the worst considering how the second fight went. Dude, he dominated him. The second fight was just very straightforward, right? So we're betting on a trilogy match here where I've won the last 5 rounds, all right? I won the 4th and the 5th of the first fight. I've won all 3 rounds in the rematch, and I'm coming into this fight still less than a 2-1 favorite. I got to go with him. And whereas I would normally say, take him by decision. I don't know, dude. He routed him last time and burned that ticket up for me. So I'm not entirely sure he doesn't just do the same thing this time around as well. Anyways, regardless, moneyline pick, Brendan Moreno, minus 185.
Michel Pereira takes on Andre Fialho, minus 265 Michel Pereira, plus 215 Fialho. The difficulty with chalk Michel Pereira, even against Nico Price last time out. Right. I mean, he had a pretty good performance. Until round 3, he started to gas pretty significantly. But looking at tape on Fialho, gas seems to be a bit of a concern for him as well. So I kind of feel like the gas tanks are going to be pretty equal between the two of them. But yeah, Michel Pereira against Nico Price last time out. It's like when he's doing that, it's awesome. And I love watching all of this stuff. I wish that they would set Michel Pereira's fights for no rules. Because we would just be able to see him do just ridiculous stuff. I think he should be a circus fighter. I enjoy him more as rather than a rising contender than just he's an entertainer in my eyes. And when he did that backflip, Nico Price is lying flat on the canvas and he does the backflip, he almost stomps him in the head. And
he does hit him in the head, but he almost stomps him. Yeah,
almost stomps him and then gets into full guard. And it was so sick. It was so sick. But if you're laying minus 265 on this guy and he ends up, and Nico Price ends up getting knocked out in that situation, there's no other way to deal with that fight except call it a disqualification. You did a backflip, kick the guy in the head while he was flat on the canvas. I mean, it's super, super entertaining, but in the rules that we have, it makes me really nervous to bet him. Watched Fialho against your boy Chris Curtis, and I'm not sure. He seemed he's a bit of a power puncher. I watched him against James Vick. He knocked out James Vick in the second round. I don't see anything special here. I think Michel is levels above him in the stand-up. Cardio is probably pretty comparable between the two of them. And besides Michel Pereira on the regional scene at 185 pounds, getting taken out by Dusko Todorovic, which that was just weird. It was just Dusko just kind of flew forward and was just throwing bombs. One of them landed. Pereira folded. The guy's chin seems to check out every single time. So yeah, I'm picking Michel Pereira, but be very, very careful because this guy is a walking disqualification if there ever was one.
Yeah, that's my issue, is that one at minus 280, I think it's too good to be true. Like, he is going to smoke Andre Fialho. And then on the other hand, it's like you could never top ticket him because he's his own worst enemy. Whether it's get himself disqualified, whether it's burn 5 rounds of energy within 3-minute time span by
During the
breakdancing
walk-in.
in there. Yeah, like, what are you doing, man? And now he's tried to pull it back. He's gone to decision in his last couple of fights.
Yeah.
He had a 3rd round finish over Zalima Madayev, and that was just like, okay, you know, even in the 3rd round, he's dangerous. He slammed him. He got a bum-ass rear naked choke, but he still did it. And then his last 2 fights have gone to decision. So on one hand, you know, is his cardio good? No. And is he still doing backflips and running off the cage and compromising himself a little bit? Yeah. So those are the worries here. But Andre Fialho is just, he's not it, man. He's not it. He's still only 27. I'm sure he's making a lot of improvements, but he is a power puncher. He generally finishes guys early in the first round. He came over from Brazil. He went 2-0 for Bellator to start out, and then he lost to Chidi and Jaquani in 21 seconds, right? Clipped by Chidi and Jaquani, topples over. That's really his first big spot. So Bellator books him against AJ Matthews, who's a banger out of Las Vegas, tough, durable guy, but he's 8-6, and this is a big rebound fight for Fialho. He edges out a very tightly contested split decision. Looks awful. His next fight, he fights Javier Torres. Once upon a time was on The Ultimate Fighter, but is not very good, you know, jiu-jitsu player out of Arizona. And it's a close fight. He ends up winning a majority. So Bellator cuts him, despite the fact that he's 4-1 for their organization and on a 2-fight winning streak. They release Andre Fialho. Now, he's young, dude. He's like 23 years old. And at the time, he's at American Kickboxing Academy, right, in San Jose. So he's a highly touted prospect, and they just walked from him. Signs with PFL, and Chris Curtis mauls him up. Now, when you watch back that fight, which you did, he's competitive in the early going. You know, it's a pretty close fight the first round and a half, but that's a vintage Chris Curtis performance where in the UFC, people are seeing fast starts out of him. He is a slow start guy, and that's what he is. He's just, in the first round with Fialho, it's competitive. The second round, he starts to take over, and then the third round, Fialho's tired. Chris just puts his foot on the gas pedal and then just bombs him. Works the body excellent. TKOs him late in the third, right? He fights a former UFC lightweight, Gleiko Fraka. He loses a majority decision. It's only a 2-round fight. It ended up being ruled a no contest afterwards, but he looks awful again. And then he signs with LFA. Bellator's released him. PFL's released him. He hasn't had notable runs with either organization, and he signs with LFA. He takes on Antonio Do Carlos Jr. Do Carlos Jr. is actually once upon a time a UFC washout. I think he might have gone 0-2 for the UFC and been on Tough Brazil. The guy hadn't had a pro fight in 3 years. Comes off the sidelines and beats him, right? Just, it was tired the whole way. When he wanted takedowns, he got takedowns. Fialho had 0 game off his back. He's tired the whole time. His striking is predicated on knock you out right away, or it kind of just falls apart. Defensively, he's not super sound. So when he knocks out James Vick, known as one of the chin-year fighters, you see all the time, top 5 chin-years in MMA. James Vick makes the list, man.
That was a fun one to watch.
Yeah, he knocks him out, not surprised. And then he goes to UAE Warriors. He knocks out Sang-Hoo Wu, 18 seconds. Lincoln Puig, not that anybody's heard of these guys, 4 minutes and 47 seconds, first round. Stefan Sekulic is a washout from the UFC as well, so at least he's a little bit notable. And not like he's fragile. A win over Sekulic is okay, and he knocks him out in the first round. But that just goes back to, we know the guy can knock out guys in the first round, and beyond that, his game falls apart big time. This is his UFC debut. He's fanned out of PFL. He's fanned out of Bellator. He's taking a UFC fight. It's the highest of the highs, the brightest of the bright lights. It's a UFC pay-per-view. It's a main card. He's taking on a thrilling fan favorite action fighter, and he's on short notice. You know, he's either going to knock him out, punch a chance. He either clips him with something, or he's going to get toasted down the stretch, or maybe even toasted in the first round. I mean, Chidi knocked him out in 21 seconds. So yeah, I got Pereira. I think if it stays standing, which would be fighting to Andre Fialho's best abilities, he's a little bit faster. He's got a better chin. He's more durable. And if he just clubs him with something, he's going to do some damage. As far as like the sharp technique side of it, yeah, he keeps sharp and technical. It just doesn't matter when you're in a war. He doesn't do well in wars. He does well when he finishes the guy quick and has his own way. Fights that the guy tests him don't go his way. If there's one thing you can guarantee in a fight with Michel Pereira, is you're gonna have to. Is anybody bleeping this down for a TV censorship?
Yeah,
the guy's gonna fucking bring it, man. Okay, this guy is going to bring it. Right, that is a goddamn guarantee. Michel Pereira's coming at you, and I think that is gonna break him. And that's if it's stand up. Easiest path to victory is take him down. Pereira has shown good ground game in the past. Of course, he is a BJJ black belt, but beyond that, his wrestling's not great. but he's so strong. If he wants you to the ground, he will plow you to the ground. The reason he beat Nico Price largely in that second round is when he did end up on his guard, just held him down the whole time. So strong, decent enough top game. That's the way to beat Andre Fialho. Of course, this idiot wants to fight of the night 50G bonus and wants to run off the cage and do a backflip. So he probably won't take the easiest path to victory. I'm just saying it's on the table. So yeah, the pick has got to be for Michel Pereira, and just a tough debut for Andre Fialho all around.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got Saeed Nurmagomedov taking on Cody Stamman, -200. Saeed Nurmagomedov, plus 170 for Stamman. Don't be fooled by the name Nurmagomedov here, because watching tape, went back, watched the Ciryl fight, beautiful knockout. Watching the Raoni fight, I mean, Raoni's credited with 2 takedowns, but they're kind of on like spinning back kick attempts from Saeed. Saeed trains with Mark Henry in New York. He's not part of the crew. He's not a cousin, I guess, in the same light as like a cousin Umar. Cousin Umar, watch out for cousin Umar. He's gonna be a problem. But Saeed doesn't have that wrestling game that all of the other guys with the last name Nurmagomedov tend to have. The striking is slick. It's really, really nice. He's got a lot of spinning attacks. I'm sure he's working on his wrestling. Him and Zabit are supposed to be like, main training partners together. I think Stamman's a live dog here, though, because that wrestling just hasn't really been tested with Saeed at the UFC level. You can go back and watch the Bibulatov fight, which he lost a close decision in. And Bibulatov was able to take down Saeed. I mean, I feel like this could probably play out very similarly to Stamman versus Song Yadong, where it's, where Stamman took Song Yadong completely out of his element there. It was a close fight, but you land 5 takedowns, you get a bunch of top control, and you squeak one through, a close one on the cards. Like, if this stays at range, Cody Stamman's got a 64-inch reach. Saeed's got 70-inch reach, plus, like, all the spinning techniques. Like, it's not going to be competitive on the feet. Stamman's not stupid. Durability's pretty good for him. He's going to be pushing the wrestling. He's going to be pushing that style of fight, push it up against the cage. Do whatever you got to do. I think Cody Stamman's a live dog here. I haven't bet it. I wanted to talk to you first, see where your head's at, but I haven't seen much on tape to lead me to believe that if it becomes a grapple heavy affair, that Saeed can fight that fight. So dog or pass for me. What about you?
Yeah, man, I hear you. On the same page. I think part of it is the last name Nurmagomedov. Even if he's related to him or if he isn't, people see it and they're naturally like, this guy's probably going to win. Scary Russian last name. It's a famous Russian last name. Guy's probably going to win. And you assume that he can grapple and you can assume he can wrestle. And who's Cody Stamman, right? I haven't heard of this guy. He's from Michigan. Okay, fair. You go with Saeed. I think the line's way off. And Cody Stamman definitely has the potential to win based on the grappling. So we're agreeing largely here. If you look at Saeed Nurmagomedov, twice beaten. So how do you beat this guy? Well, you mentioned the Bibulatov fight where he does get taken down, takes him out of his element. Don't let him do the flashy striking. Ground him. That's the way to beat him. Perfect. UFC, right? Beats Goggins, beats Ricardo Ramos, fights Raoni Barcelos. This is a good fight. This is an excellent fight because I'm very high on Raoni Barcelos. I think the world of him, but he has extremely questionable ring IQ at times. So this is 1-1 going into the third. And in the third, I'm screaming, Paul. I'm screaming. Go to the takedown, Raoni. Takedown wins you the fight, please. And of course, a spinning back kick in a close round, in a close fight, blows it for him. Raoni takes him down. Raoni holds him down. We win the round. We win the fight. Great times, right? Great times. It came down to if Raoni would have wrestled earlier, he would have had a lot more success. He just fought a bad game plan. Cody Stamman, what I will give him is he usually fights really tight game plans because he's usually fighting above his skill level. He fights really good guys and unfortunately comes up on the short end of the stick, but he puts together excellent game plans. So let's just discuss Nurmagomedov's 4 fights in the UFC. Debuts against Justin Scoggins, loses split decision, but that fight's at 125 pounds. Then he moves to 135. He spent largely the majority of his career fighting at 125. When you look at Cody Stamman, He's had 2 fights in the UFC at 145. He's made his debut against Tyrion Ware, and he also beat Brian Keller at 145. So the guy, he's a big bantamweight. He knows how to wrestle. Thick dude. He trains in Vegas now. He's a Michigan boy, good old Michigan boy. But yeah, he's full-time out of Las Vegas now. And you see him routinely in the room with just other UFC featherweights, and he's always just as big, if not bigger than these guys. When you look at the fights, it's like he's scored at least 1 takedown in his last 4. And then when you hear his last 4 includes Merab Dvalishvili and Jimmy Rivera, it's like he can wrestle. Can he wrestle against elite top 5, top 10 guys? No, they're better wrestlers than he is. But he's going to prove to be an excellent gatekeeper. And then these guys like Song Yadong, he can expose them. He, once upon a time, Tom Duquesnoy, he exposes him, right? He's a good guy to throw in there with somebody who's not quite 100% figured out. With Said Nurmagomedov, we know that he can strike. We know he's got that razzmatazz, the spinning back kick, that little bit of flash to his game. But defensively off his back, that's his weakness. And Cody Saftic knows that. He's the bigger guy. He's got the better wrestling. If he fights the proper game plan, and I think he will, he's 100% live. And then when you look at the line, it's like, oh man, it's not just a live underdog. DraftKings Sportsbook currently has him at plus 170.
Yep.
So yeah, I like it. And if I was a greedy guy, I would take Cody Saftic by decision. I would think that he's going to ground him and hold him down and win a decision. So we're actually 100% on the same page with that one, man.
I know. I was kind of surprised. I was surprised that you were thinking the same thing. And you were probably surprised because I saw the name Nurmagomedov and you probably thought I was going down that path.
I did. I
did my homework, kid. I did my homework. Right. And this isn't,
that was good.
He's not that kind of Nurmagomedov. He's still a fantastic fighter. No disrespect. He's still a good fighter, but he's not. He doesn't have the grappling chops of some of the other guys that we've known to or come to know and love. All right, we got Rodolfo Vieira taking on Wellington Turman. Rodolfo Vieira minus 225 favorite. Turman can be had for plus 185. What you take here?
So the problem with Rodolfo Vieira is that we were not sold a bad bill of goods, but we were kind of promised this guy's just jiu-jitsu's next level. Once the fight hits the ground, they're done. He's just so muscular. He's training out of a good camp, which was a lie because he does that Fusion XL. But I think we expected a lot more from him. And then that Anthony Hernandez fight was like that big eye-opening experience where it's like he's very much a jiu-jitsu guy. Yeah, just absolutely gassed out. When the fight was on the ground, it wasn't like he just buzzsawed right through him, right? He couldn't do much. Once he tired, there's no takedowns for him. There's no falling back on your plan B striking because he doesn't have any striking. And he just gets chopped up. He gets beaten up. It's the realization that even though he's only 32 years old, he spent so much of his adult life doing jiu-jitsu, gi jiu-jitsu specifically, that to transition over MMA, like maybe he's just not quite at that level. They book him against Dustin Stolfoots, and they're doing him a massive favor here. They're booking him against just the most winnable fight that he can have in the division. Take Stolfoots down, beat him. Does win, does get the 3rd round rear naked choke, but it's ugly, Paul. It's ugly.
I thought there was some
his striking looked better.
His
striking looked
improved.
Yeah,
his jab was definitely landing at will in that fight. You could tell he put a lot of work into that. I love what his takedown entries are great. Like for a BJJ guy, like he's actually got decent wrestling. He's very, very powerful. The stand-up is a work in progress for sure. But I thought his jab was a nice little wrinkle to his game. He's trying to turn himself into like a GSP prototype with way better jiu-jitsu. Will that work against Turman is the real question.
Yeah, well, Turman, see, the thing that plays into his favor here is that Turman has pretty much fought all of his fights in the UFC with the game plan of closing the distance, getting a hold of this guy, and grappling him, taking him to the ground, using his top game. That's his out every time. Would I give him a striking advantage over Rodolfo? Yeah, but just slight. It's just that I don't believe that he would go into a fight with a 15 minutes worth of, I'm just going to strike the whole time. It's not who he is. It's not what he does. The Sam Alvey fight, again, it doesn't have to be an eye-opener. Nobody's on this guy. You know what I'm shocked about? He signs a UFC contract. It's a 4-fight deal. He goes 1-3, including getting knocked out in the last 2 by Bruno Silva and Andrew Sanchez, and they re-signed him. And yet he actually beat Sam Alvey on a closely contested split decision.
It wasn't closely contested, though. No, it was round 3. Wellington Turman lost 2 points. For eye pokes, like within 10 seconds, like it was, they were on their way to being a Yeah, it was a unanimous card all the way around. That actually lit a firecracker underneath Wellington Turman's ass. And he started like just moving forward YOLO mode and just like throwing bombs. That's probably what he needs to do like from start to finish in this fight. But if he goes down to the ground, I'm sure he's never been submitted. He trains with Glover Teixeira, or at least there was a picture on Instagram of him training with him the other day.
He's actually never been taken down in the UFC as a 100% takedown defense, but I don't think anybody's gone in there with the game plan of take this guy down and dominate him on the ground.
It's
so
true.
Okay, so the official pick, I'm not actually chasing the dog on Turman because I just don't really love Turman. But what I would say is this is a very good live betting opportunity. Like, I'm going to pre-bet Rodolfo Vieira, but if this fight goes past the first round or two, I guess I could see Turman at some point. Listen,
Rodolfo got a third-round finish last time, though.
I know, the Hernandez fight dude, he got submitted by Anthony Hernandez. He basically quit when he gassed out.
I think he had a horrible weight cut, though. Like that
Look
weight
how much muscle he has.
That weight cut was horrible for him. The game plan was a lot better. He was a lot more composed against our last time out. The jab was landing. That was a nice little wrinkle to his game. Like, I think there's improvements being made for him. But yeah, anybody who gets subbed and is supposed to be the greatest BJJ practitioner gets subbed by Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, like, there's only so much trust I can give you moving forward. I would say be careful. Watch the weigh-ins for Rodolfo. If he has another bad cut, if he misses, if he comes in really, really, really gaunt, looks a little bit wobbly, maybe it's time to bet the dog in this spot. I'm gonna take Vieira as well, as it sounds like you are as well.
This weekend, there will be a heavyweight bout between one of the sport's best knockout artists and an undefeated challenger. This will fly, which is great for you because new DraftKings Sportsbook customers can bet just $1 and win $100 in free bets if either fighter lands a punch. That's all it takes. One jab, cross, hook, uppercut, haymaker, or hammer fist, and the money is yours. The heavyweight title bout is scheduled for 5 rounds, and I can't imagine it goes the distance without a punch being landed. So bet just $1 on this no-brainer and win $100 in free bets. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DOP. Throw down just $1 on the UFC 270 main event and win $100 in free bets if Ngannou or Gane land a punch. That's code DOP this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC.
Ilia Topuria taking on Charles Jourdain. Ilia Topuria was supposed to take on Movsar Evloev. Evloev got COVID, pulled out. Props to Jourdain. This was kind of the fight that it didn't seem, it was real tumbleweeds in the featherweight division. Nobody wanted to take the Topuria fight on a week's notice. Charles Jourdain steps up and in. The only weakness that we've really seen from Topuria was in his UFC debut against Yusuf Zalal. Apparently he had COVID right before that, so slowing down a bit in the third round, maybe that had a little bit to do with it. Since then, the guy's just been on an absolute wreck. He's been an absolute wrecking crew. He seems to have skills everywhere. The stand-up, the body shots are just lethal. His wrestling's good. Got good BJJ. He's got all of the markings of a future title contender at the very least. I think he rolls. He's minus 550. Of course he does. Props to Jourdain for stepping into this spot, but he's stepping in there with a killer. So, not much else to say about it. I think Topuria absolutely flattens him. What about you?
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this is top ticket material, even though he's minus 550. What else can you do with it? But Topuria wins this fight in my opinion, for sure. It just, how easy does he want to make it on himself? But yeah, he looks like a real deal prospect. BJJ black belt. He's still only 24 years old. Kid's already got a bunch of money. Just trains full time. Even though he's out of Spain, Yeah, it looks like he's getting in some solid reps. And when he comes over to the UFC, makes his debut against Yusuf Zalal, he's a plus 135 underdog. We were on him. This is the thing with him slowing down in that fight. One, COVID beforehand, sure. Two, he comes in on short notice, like a week or two notice, replacing Sung-Won Choi. So he didn't have a full camp. It's his UFC debut. He's got to come all the way down from Europe. I would give him a pass in that fight. And you see for the first 2 rounds, he's rock solid. I mean, he's very, very strong. For a guy, he has 0 wins by TKO or KO. He's just a submission guy. He does a good job of taking down Zalal, controlling him up against the cage. Striking looks improved, and he's able to get a decision victory. The next fight with Damon Jackson. Knocks out Damon Jackson. First career win by TKO. How good did his hands look in that fight? Sharp, crisp, combination punching, roasted the body. Damon Jackson's a little bit chinny, but it roasted the body, like he beat him up pretty soundly and got his first ever TKO victory.
No, he knocked out Steven Gonzalez at Brave FC 29.
Okay, right. Okay, so that's his one. Yeah, I guess he's got 1 TKO victory. He goes out, he knocks out Damon Jackson. I guess that's number 2, right? Because he's 10 fights into his career at this point. And then against Ryan Hall, Ryan Hall fought just one of his classic Ryan Hall game plans, but you see how zoned in this guy is. You see how when Ryan Hall flips to his back, how just unworried he was. He wasn't going to get swept. He's got high level grappling. His ground and pound looked pretty heavy, and he's able to knock out Ryan Hall. It's a weird type of matchup. It's hard to look good in a fight like that, but he took care of business. He did what he had to do, and he got him out of there in the first round. I just think sky's the limit for this guy. He's getting better and better and better. When they book him against Movsar Evloev 6-0 in the UFC. He's undefeated. The guy's solid. He's looked nothing short of world class in his tenure so far. Why would you match up 2 young, hot prospects like that? Because both of them think they're the better man. And you sent me that video of Topuria basically salivating that he wanted to fight Evloev, right? This guy's a rat for pulling it. That's how bad he wants this fight. Evloev's low-key a top 10 guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's low-key not top 10, but he's an absolute killer, man.
It was an aggressive one for sure.
Wants to fight the best guys. Mm-hmm. So Jourdain saving the matchup's cool. Jourdain jumping in there is cool. And if Jourdain lands a flying knee to the face, and that's his only path to victory. Outside of that, striking-wise, he'll get backed up. The volume is for sure towards Jourdain. Jourdain's also like the longer guy, so he could play to the outside and use the leg kicks effectively because he's got a good kicking game. Dude doesn't feel pain in his shins. He just keeps kicking. And it's good for dictating that distance. This is a big cage, all good stuff. But Topuria is just going to track him down. I think he's got the tighter hands, the better combinations. He can fight for 3 rounds. He's had the full camp in this spot. I think he just marches him backwards and lands the better combinations. However, I don't even really want to see the striking. There is such an easy path to victory here if Topuria just takes him down. Take him down,
for find the sub.
People love watching Charles Jourdain because he just goes balls to the walls, spinning stuff, flying knees. He's throwing head kicks. He's throwing low kicks. He's throwing 5-6 punch combinations. He's just, he's a dog, right? And people that love watching blood and guts, they love watching Charles Jourdain. If you go back to his first career loss, TJ Laramie for the TKO 145-pound title, it's 5 rounds. Laramie's like 19 or 20 years old and not known for his wrestling. He's more of a kickboxer. Dominates him all 5 rounds, pillar to post with his wrestling. He makes his UFC debut against Des Green. He surrenders 4 takedowns, pillar to post, dominated. Andre Fili, 5 easy takedowns. That's the reason he lost that fight. And then Julian Erosa. I thought maybe he had shored up a bit of his takedown defense issues, maybe a bit of his grappling issues. Julian Erosa took him down when he wanted to. He out-grappled him fairly handedly, and he chokes him out with the Darce choke. Like, Topuria is such levels ahead of this guy, both in the wrestling and the grappling department, that he could, in theory, just go out there and choke him out in a round or 2. If he wants to have a fun fight for the crowd, and he respects the fact that Jourdain is taking on short notice, so he's willing to entertain, and he's pent up because of the Evloev fight fell through, and he fights a stupid game plan, I still think he wins. It's that this would be easy money if he just goes out there and shoots that takedown. So, yeah, I'm all over Topuria. I think he's a top ticket play this week.
And DraftKings Sportsbook has Topuria by sub at plus 140, which is a lot better than the rest of the market right now. That's not going to last very long. Once we get off the air, I'm going to be finding a similar site. Unfortunately, we can't bet DraftKings Sportsbook up here in Canada, but I know places that steal DraftKings Sportsbook's lines. So Topuria by sub, that is the path of least resistance. Plus 140, I think, is a pretty good look in that spot. All right, we got your boy. So it's the fight that's been booked, 3 times now? Your boys, Battle of Cody's boys, Raoni Barcelos, Victor Henry, minus 500 for your boy Raoni, plus 375 for Henry. I mean, it sounded like you were on Barcelos last time. Didn't necessarily love the price, and I think the price is considerably worse than the first time that this was booked. Has anything changed for you, Code?
I think it was like minus 550 last time
Was
for
it the
some
same?
reason. Now it's minus 500. So it's like slightly better, I want to say. But yeah, listen, we've already broke down this fight. There's a ton of fights in this card, so we'll just quickly go through. But Victor Henry, savvy veteran, been around the game, deserves a spot in the UFC roster. But to debut against Raoni Barcelos is just, an unbelievably difficult task. Raoni Barcelos, meanwhile, has I don't think it's his fault, but he's similar to your boy Gregor Gillespie in the sense that he's pissing away the best years of his career, not fighting high level guys. His wins so far in the UFC include Kurt Holoba, cut. Chris Gutierrez, not even a fringe contender. He's a top 25 guy. Carlos Huation, I'm pretty sure he was a one and done. Said Nurmagomedov, and again, 1-1 going into the third, close fight. Khalid Taha, definitely not a factor in the UFC. And then the Timur Valiev fight, another bad game plan performance from him. So he's fought in a bunch of guys that the casual fan has never heard of, mostly guys that were unranked. And now low key, he's 34 years old, coming up on his 35th birthday. So yeah, like he's got all the talent in the world. It's just he's wasting it on fighting unknown guys, and that's what he's getting here in Victor Henry. He's got better technical boxing. Raoni Barcelos' boxing is just sharp, crisp. I'd like him to throw maybe a little bit more, but he throws 2s and 3s, just, very crisp boxing. Wrestling, he's a 7-time member of the Brazilian national wrestling team. Guys wrestle in a bunch of high-level international competitions. His takedown entries are beautiful. He can mix it up, versatile, can chain wrestle if need be. Cardio. I mean, he's got 3-round cardio. He used to be a former world champion, would fight in these 5-round fights. He can go to that, but again, I don't think it's one of his deepest weapons. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, world champion black belt. Like, guy's got skills everywhere. In fact, he's better than Victor Henry in every facet of the game. The thing is that he could have very easily won his last fight, and he fought a terrible game plan. This fight with Victor Henry, again, he's got the skills to beat him everywhere. We just got to see a little bit more out of Raoni in the decision-making facet of the game. But so not a top-ticket guy, but he's probably going to be a second-ticket guy.
That all makes sense. I looked up like their previous matchup. It was supposed to be December 18th on the Lewis versus Dawkins card. I mean, who knows on best fight odds, but it said that the closing range for that number was plus or minus 375. So okay, I feel like they jacked it up. So when they reopened it at minus 350, and the money keeps piling in on Raoni Barcelos. So yeah, that's always the rough us versus the books, right? Is like when they rebook these fights and it's the same fight and it's like a month later, it's like they already have the information of where they should probably open this thing. But yeah, even more people are still piling on regardless. All right, we got Michael Morales taking on Trevin Giles. Minus 125 Morales, Dana White Contender Series, a veteran, and Giles can be had for plus 105. It was like minus 150 the other day. People are liking themselves some Trevin Giles. Giles is coming down to 170 pounds for this fight, which I think based on like his frame is a good move for him. He was not particularly a big middleweight. It's obviously going to be a tough cut, but on his Instagram, he's got, I think he's like 186 as of yesterday, and he kind of shows his body transformation. So we'll see if he's even able to make weight. Morales training at an Entrim gym. I don't know who are the big guys that he trains on a daily basis. Obviously, Brennan Moreno and him probably aren't mucking it up all that often. He had a pretty good performance on the Contender Series. They were expecting him mostly to be a striker, and he showed some pretty, I guess he's got a bit of a judo background. He showed some pretty solid wrestling. Stand-up looks like a work in progress, but he's 22 years old. Even though the action seems to be coming in on Trevin Giles. I mean, Giles, the one thing that used to always help, like I always kind of assumed that he was durable, and I mean, Dricus du Plessis just put him into another galaxy there. So now coming down from 185, cutting all of that weight down, maybe the opponents that you're taking on have, a little bit less power than at 185 pounds, but Dricus was a former 170 pounder as well.
Beast,
I don't trust Giles's his chin all that much. I liked the wrestling that I saw from Michael Morales. I'm going with the kid, 22 years old. Obviously, he's going to be green. The stand-up is a work in progress, as I had already mentioned, but I think he's at least got the better ceiling. I've never been a Trevin Giles guy, and I won't be today. What about you?
Yeah, okay. It's hard to be a Trevin Giles guy. He's just been underwhelming massively as far as when he came over to the UFC. He actually made his debut at 205 pounds, which makes this interesting move to 170, even all that. Like, it's intriguing to me. Guys got wins over Ike Villanueva and Ryan Spann. Ike's a heavyweight at times in a 205er, and Ryan Spann's, they're big guys. At one point, he was fighting big guys. He was supposed to be something. And then the Zach Cummings fight and the Jared Mearshart fight, same thing both times. He's got no cardio. He gives up third round guillotine choke submissions. He's a part-time police officer, part-time fighter. Don't really see the improvements out of him. The win over James Krause, terrible fight versus a guy that took the fight on like 12 hours notice. The Bavon Lewis fight, Bavon Lewis, no success in the UFC. The Roman Delites fight, it's a very strange fight, right? It could be scored either way. Roman Delites makes a handful of bonehead decisions that blow it for him. And then the Dreykus fight, he gets completely KO'd stiff. So it's been a very underwhelming run for him for sure. But I think he's live as an underdog. I agree with the money coming on Trevin Giles. I would say this is a dog or pass situation. He's got experience. He's fought a bunch of recognizable names. At times, you see he's got decent enough boxing. At times, you see that he's a well-rounded fighter. He just struggles at putting it all together. The thing is that at 29 years old, and now with a bunch of fights in the UFC, he's got that ring time. He's got that experience. Michael Morales, he won his fight on Contender Series as a plus 190 underdog against Nikolai Vretnikov. He took him down. He's able to control him. Is he taking down Trevin Giles, a guy that's fought guys like Roman Delites and stuff takedowns? Like, I don't think his wrestling's that good. He's still only 22, and he came from a pretty low level, like Ecuadorian regional scene. Yes, he's training at Entram now. Dreykus took him down twice.
Antonio Bragonito took him down twice. Like
BJJ world champion, but in a big fat dude now. Holy, if you've ever seen a picture of him recently, it's like, good
James
God,
Krause took him
Nito,
down.
what are you doing? Yeah, that's all fair. I just feel like those guys are more established. They're either BJJ black belts or they're savvy veterans of the game, and they're up a weight class. This is a guy that literally was a 2-1 underdog on the Contender Series against a nobody. And he's able to take down the guy and control him. He was known as a striker, but he wasn't looking to strike in that spot. His striking didn't look super crisp. He's very green. I would say the technical boxing advantage goes towards Giles. I would say the grappling advantage, Giles, I'm pretty sure, is a black belt now. Like he's paid his dues. He's made some improvements. And plus 105, I want a little bit better. Everybody else got the little bit better, which is why it's only plus 105 now. But straight up, yeah, I would say this is a dog or pass. 13 fights, you don't need them all. Right? This is one you could very easily just walk away from. We'll talk about another matchup later on that is also a matchup you probably just want to walk away from. There's no shame in passing. But yeah, gun to the head, got to make a pick. I'm going to go with the underdog, Trevin Giles here.
Jack Della Maddalena takes on Pete Rodriguez. Maddalena is a minus 350 favorite. Rodriguez plus 270. Maddalena on the Contender Series looks to have great mobility. More kind of maybe a little bit more of like a point fighter, but a big time volume fighter. And then Pete Rodriguez, I mean, I watched a couple of his fights. It doesn't take long to watch all of his professional fights.
No.
He's got 4 professional fights. They're all on like low level regional scene, and they're all first round finishes. He just looks like a straight up brawler. I understand why Maddalena's a big favorite in this spot. Interestingly, Rodriguez, at least on the numbers that are provided to UFC stats, and we'll see if the reach is actually real, but he's got a 1-inch reach advantage, even though he's 5'9", which I found kind of interesting. He doesn't look like a guy who would have super, super long arms. I mean, Maddalena should be able to land volume, and we don't know what this Rodriguez guy looks like after swinging for the fences for 4 minutes. Like his longest professional fight is like 2.5 minutes. He's had like a fight over. He has like a extensive amateur record, which, he's gotten out of the first round. But I mean, the guy looks very, very raw. He's slammed it or put into this position on pretty short notice. I just need to see more. Like the guys he's fighting are just so low level that I think he finally has met his match here. I agree with Maddalena being the big favorite, but there's a big question mark around this Pete Rodriguez guy. I'm not even sure what to make of him. What about you?
Yeah, Jack Della definitely earned my respect. I made the mistake of underestimating this guy when he's on the Dana White's Contender Series. Just watching him on tape, he loses his first 2 pro fights, goes on a win streak after that. Yeah, he looks a little bit raw. He looks a little bit jerky, and don't really know what to expect out of him. He's taking on Anja Lusa, who's at a Stanford MMA now. Looks pretty talented, tight striking. Obviously out of a good camp. Gilbert Burns was touting that they had been just working a lot together, and Jack Della put a beating on him, dude. He's one of these guys that just puts his foot on the gas the entirety of the fight, like infinite cardio. In ways almost like a Jamie Malarkey. Like Jamie Malarkey looks to wrestle more and Jack Della looks to strike more, but they just keep going, man. And it's unbelievably difficult to deal with. Lusa was having moments, and Lusa came in good shape. His cardio looked better than it has in the past. It didn't matter. Jack Della just kept putting a beating on him, almost stopped him a few times, ends up just routing him for a decision victory. I knew right then this guy's going to win some money for us in the UFC. Not because he's going to be a top 10, top 15 guy, but because they're going to match him up with these lower end guys his first 3 to 5 fights, and he's just going to put a beating on them with his cardio, his pace. Just not something you see all the time at a low level. They book him against Warley Alves for his UFC debut on this card. Mm-hmm. Warley Alves is a 13-time UFC veteran. He's a former Ultimate Fighter Brazil champion. He has a win over Colby Covington. He's fought Kamaru Usman to a non-competitive decision. Lost. Whoa, dude. Whoa. They like him too. They like him a lot. And when Warley Alves pulls out, they still make the effort to keep the fight together by drawing up Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez is a 7-2 amateur. He only turned pro in MMA 2020, right? It's like 16 months ago. Turns pro in Florida for George Masvidal's MMA promotion at their Icon, right? And yeah, he's just routed 4 guys early in the first round for Icon, but that's it. Does he have? Is there something there? Could he build on it? For sure. Kid like this needs to go to LFA and fight 3 times there, exactly, and then get a Contender Series contract and fight on the Contender Series, and then come to the UFC and then do a little bit of a damage. But to take a fight on short notice against a dude that looked the real deal in Jack Della, yeah, that's tough business. And so, yeah, pace is the name of the game. Della has to just absorb the early storm for the first 3 to 4, maybe even the first round, 3 to 4 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever. And then in the second, I think he'll definitely take over, or he just proves to be the better guy, pillar to post. So Jack Della, and the only thing preventing Jack Della from being a top ticket guy, because I truthfully do believe he's going to just walk through this guy, is that, yeah, he's got an opponent that finished everybody in the first round. It's his UFC debut. He has nothing to lose. He's going to come to swing, right? He's going to come swinging, and that presents a little bit of danger. But I think Della still gets the job done.
Tony Gravely takes on Simon Oliveira, minus 240 Gravely, plus 195 Oliveira. Oliveira on the Contender Series. I looked up like a former tweet of mine. And I think he had like 10 spinning back fist attempts against Jose Alday. And I made note of that, like on Twitter. I was just like, someone who can just stand there, avoid that spin, like someone's gonna absolutely crack him. And now, is that person Tony Gravely? Tony Gravely, I mean, against Nate Maness, that first round was pretty close. We all just kind of remember, the comeback in round 2. But like Nate Maness was lucky to be allowed to go to the stool at the end of round 1 there. Like if Gravely has another 10 seconds there, fight is over. We never get to a second round. Gravely gets his win bonus. Nate Maness, goes home crying. That's just the sport that we play sometimes, It's he lands that punch 10 seconds earlier, and it's a totally different narrative altogether. Oliveira, before his Contender Series fight, it seemed like most of his game is kind of predicated around submissions, which has been a problem for Gravely in the past. But if I'm Gravely, we keep this at range and wait for this guy to throw some like wild spinning techniques. He's a little bit. Maybe he was only doing it because he's on Contender Series and he's just like, if I land this spinning back fist,
YOLO,
I'm gonna get a job in the UFC. Well, he still got a job in the UFC despite going to decision. So I'm not gonna be betting this Oliveira guy until I see improvements. Like he left himself open, and Jose Alday just wasn't the guy to he just didn't know how to capitalize on it. But if he keeps doing this at this level, someone's going to crack him. So, Gravely is my pick. Gravely by knockout, I was looking the other day, is Gravely by knockout at DraftKings Sportsbook can be had for they've adjusted. They're smart. It's at plus 225 there. There are prices out there that there's plus 335 is the highest I see out there on the in the market right now. I think Gravely wins. I think he probably wins by knockout, but a decision wouldn't surprise me either. I don't think much of Saimon Oliveira. Do you?
No, this is the kind of fight that you would love to just go 100% all out on Tony Gravely. I mean, the guy wrestled collegiately at Appalachian State University. He's got the wrestling chops. He's just going to be able to take down Saimon Oliveira whenever he wants. And besides that, his boxing, it's developed. He's got a big right hand. He's got power for the division. He can throw in combination. He's good at entering that pocket, staying in front of his opponent. His problems are he doesn't have good cardio. He's kind of never had good cardio. Everything he does is explosive movement. It's big. His takedown attempts are big, blast doubles. You know, the striking is that big overhand right. He closes distance big, real quick like a running back, fast twitch muscle. He just doesn't have the cardio to keep on going. So he basically, remember his fight? Well, doesn't matter, but he fought Geraldo de Freitas 2 fights back. He actually gets outstruck 76-49 in the fight and wins a split decision. But every round he would take his opponent down. There's no ground and pound out of him with the takedown. He allows himself to get outworked. Then in the third round, he's completely out of fuel, and De Freitas outstrikes him in the third round like 44-21. Dominates him in the third round, loses a split decision. But right there was like, I think he could have problems with cardio the later these fights go. Beats Burchak, who's, you know, a very aged veteran, just has no durability. And then you run into the Nate Maness fight. Now, I'm rolling with Tony Gravely. I love what he brings to the table with his wrestling. His striking's getting better. He's an American top team guy. What's there not to love? And you're right. The referee should have stopped the first round. Should have stopped the fight after the first. I think Nate Maness is out. He's sitting there. He has no idea what's up. He just got floored. His corner has to pick him up, which is a no-no. Bring him back to his corner. And he has no idea what's going on. He had a broken jaw. But here's the thing. If a man who just suffered a massive concussion and broke his jaw can then just come out in the second round, stuff all of your takedown attempts in the second, box you up and knock you out, that's a problem. And you know why that happened? Because Gravely gassed out. And like everything he does is just so explosive and so big time that he doesn't give himself any energy for the swim back home. He just beelines it. I'm either going to make it or I'm going to drown and run out of energy. That style's fun. The fans love it. Very exciting, very thrilling, but like there's no career longevity in it. And you're going to risk losing fights to guys like Nate Maness, a guy that you were a better wrestler than, a guy that you did have better striking than, just by going out berserk. So that's kind of the one question here is that Saimon Oliveira, you talked about the fact that Gravely's plus 220 by knockout. He's fallen in love with his knockouts. He's fallen in love with his boxing. Now that he just got knocked out, I don't know how he comes back from that, first of all. Second of all, Saimon Oliveira's never been finished. He's 18-3 in those 3 losses, all 3 of them by decision. Doesn't got a bad chin, doesn't got bad submission defense. It's that he's never fought anybody like Tony Gravely before. No. There are levels. He puts
himself in positions to get sparked, though.
That a better man will capitalize, and Tony Gravely is the definition of a better man. So yes, we take Tony Gravely, but Gravely's a big favorite, and Gravely's a guy that has proven to be questionable at times and has let us down in his most recent by questionable decision-making skills. So the pick is Tony Gravely, but I've learned a little bit more. I don't want to go super high on him. We will have him, but not all the way.
All right, Vanessa Demopoulous takes on Silvana Gomez Juarez, a fight that we broke down, on 2 weeks ago? I mean, was it supposed to be on last week's card?
I think, yeah, it was on last week's card.
We didn't have very much.
It was my only underdog selection on last week's card.
We didn't have very much interest in the fight, and I'm not going to lie, my interest hasn't been piqued by having an extra week here. You were picking Juarez last time we talked about it. Has anything changed?
No. So if anybody cares about the breakdown, check it out last time. It was probably better than this one will be. But yeah, essentially with Demopoulous, I mean, she trains with Mackenzie Dern. She's got a similar style in that no wrestling, limited striking, great jiu-jitsu. If she can't get this fight to the ground, she's in trouble. Juarez will box her up from the outside. If she comes with that forward motion, she's always coming forward, hands low, face up in the air, can take a good punch. She's always coming forward. If she can come forward, trip her to the ground, yeah, she should dominate. I mean, we saw Juarez get absolutely dominated by Lupita Godinez. I just think that Godinez has got the wrestling that Vanessa Demopoulous just doesn't have. So if this is a striking battle, Juarez is going to win. If it's a grappling battle, Demopoulous is going to win. Most times you want the grappler in a grappler versus striker matchup. But what good is grappling if you can't physically get the fight to the ground, A, and B, this is a 13 fight card, right? To this point on this card, not that I'm forcing an underdog. Pass on this fight. That's the path. Pass on this fight. But to this point, my underdog selections include Cody Stamman, which is a nice price, by the way. And in like a plus 105 on Trevin Giles. Like, give me a break. Silvana Gomez Juarez. It's a pass, but as we like to say on the show, it's a dogger pass. Dog selection is Juarez. That's why I would take in the spot.
It is the fight that puts the pass in Fight Pass.
The cranberry sauce matchup of the week.
Cranberry sauce matchup of the week for sure. All right, Matt Frivola takes on Gennaro Valdez, minus 190 Frivola, plus 160 Valdez. Valdez, another guy training out of Entrim Gym with Brandon Moreno. He was a massive, I'm sure on Contender Series, you were probably shaking in your wee boots because he was a massive favorite taking on his opponent forgot to put on a jock, and I believe he didn't have his mouthpiece in when he tried to enter the cage, and they're like, bro, you got to go back and sort this stuff out. And then, he didn't have his mouthpiece in for most of the fight. And he ate shots. He looked super. They both looked, by the end of round one, they both looked incredibly gassed. They both actually looked off. Like, as round one ended, Valdez is like stammering around there. He obviously recovered a lot better than his opponent, and got the finish in round two. But my God, man, for a guy who's 10-0, this guy looks, and he's 29 years old too, so it's not like you can really like pass it off as always super, super young. It's like, we're getting close to like, this is, in the next couple of years, that's probably the finished product for this guy. Frivola always kind of worries me because I think his chin is not great, but there's a real easy path for him here. It's like, you gotta, like when you took on Luis Pena, you gotta stick to the wrestling. You gotta stick to this guy like glue. The only way you lose this fight is at range, eating some big shots. Frivola, get those takedowns. Maybe fish for a sub. I don't know what Valdez's submission game is like whatsoever. But, you got to be on those hips like in the first minute of this fight. That's how Matt Frivola wins. I think he does win. Not going to overrate him getting knocked out by Terrence McKinney in the first round. That happens to people, especially even against like Luis Pena. Frivola's chin was cracked a little bit. Like, his durability is definitely questionable at the best of times. But I think he gets the job done here. I'm not impressed by what I saw from Gennaro Valdez. So, Frivola, minus 190. Don't love it. Don't hate it. I think it's about fair. But steamroller Frivola gets the job done for me. What about you?
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. And again, the only one thing preventing us from going real big on Frivola is he just got knocked out in 7 seconds, right? Yeah. So how do you rebound from that? Where's the chin at? Frivola was never known to have, remember the Paulo Reyes fight once upon a time? He's just not really the most durable guy. So could he get chin check? Sure. And, that questionable durability is the reason you don't go all in on him. But Gennaro Valdez, oh my God, man. When he was on the Contender Series, he opens up early in the week at minus 350, I think. He quickly goes to 5-1. I agree with the 5-1. He goes off as a 10-1 favorite. He's minus 1,000 favorite.
One book, according to Best Fight Odds, had him at minus 2,300.
Yeah, like ridiculous. What's going on here?
Well, they just didn't want to take any more Valdez action, basically.
Yeah, and so when I had worked his couple fights for Lux Fight League, and he looks pretty well rounded. He's got decent striking. He's got a nasty guillotine choke. His submissions look good for the South American regional scene, and for the most part, he seems pretty okay. How's he going to beat Patrick White? Well, Patrick White's from Alaska. He competes for Alaskan FC, and he's fighting out of Avalanche Wrestling, which is quite literally the only wrestling club in Alaska. It wasn't going to go good for him right from the get-go. The takedowns were the path, the victory. The guy shows up, like you said, he doesn't even have a jock strap on. He's not wearing a mouth guard. It's like a boiling bite. He'd get hit and he would just fly out of his mouth. Like, it was embarrassing. But it was an embarrassing fight that Patrick White is close to actually winning. That was the amazing part. It was like Valdez, he throws so much into everything he does that he doesn't have great cardio. A lot of it is because of the explosive and wasted energy that he's doing. His wrestling's okay. He scored 4 takedowns in that fight, but even a rudimentary guy like Patrick White was able to escape and get back up to his feet. When it was standing, he'd swing for the fences, but he's defensively a big-time liability. Like, he dropped White. He scored a nice knockdown, but in doing so, like, he took a lot of damage. He was on skates for half the first round. He's so lucky that Patrick White gassed out after that first, because otherwise, like, it's very difficult for the human body to recover from that much of a beating. But talk about a greasy sweat from a 10-1 favorite. Crazy. The thing is that you can't not give him a contract, because it was the craziest fight you've ever seen. Like, it was absolutely crazy. So yeah, now you run into Matt Frevola, a guy that is in the gym routinely with Aljamain Sterling and Murad Dvalishvili, and he's fought in better guys than you, like Lando Venata and Jalen Turner. And one good thing about his game is that he can strike, and that he's very aggressive. He'll stay in the pocket and back you up, is that his chin's a liability. So he needs to go back right to the wrestling right away. Take this guy down, put your BJJ black belt to good use, and just smother him, rinse and repeat over and over. He has the grappling advantage over Gennaro. But you know that that Valdez is going to come out swinging. He could clip him. It's MMA. It's a puncher's chance game. And so when you think about dogs with a chance, you mentioned Francis Ngannou's got a chance because he's got that punching power. Michael Morales, he's the favorite, actually. So what do you got to talk about him for? I suppose Deiveson Figueiredo, if that's what people think. I don't, but they might think that. And then Gennaro Valdez. Yeah, you're taking on, you got a lot of power. Your opponent maybe doesn't have the greatest durability. Maybe you can catch them, sure. I just don't love always betting on that narrative. I think the better grappler, better wrestler, better cardio, better pace, better experience is all towards Frevola. He should be able to go out there and get the job done.
Yep. Go after the takedown early and often. Frevola by sub plus 350 at DraftKings Sportsbook. Not a bad look, in my opinion. I like it better than the decision, to be perfectly honest. That's like plus 165. Finally, we've got Kay Hansen taking on Jasmine. This one's a mouthful. Jasmine Jasudavicius. I mean, on her Contender Series fight, Michael Bisping just started calling her Jasmine, and that's what I'm going to actually do as well in this fight, or talking about this fight. She's super, super long. She's going to have a massive reach advantage in this spot. Like, she's, 5'7", 68-inch reach, taking on Kay Hansen, who's 5'2", 63-inch reach. So that's all there. She throws the jab, but there just doesn't seem to be anything to to force Kay back in this spot. Like, on her Jasmine's Contender Series fight, her opponent, like, after round 1, where Jasmine got her to the ground and definitely laid a whopping on her, like, when they were on the feet, that jab wasn't keeping Julia Polastri off of her whatsoever. And I question, it's like, in this fight, Kay Hansen training out of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in California, or Fullerton, California. I think it's one of the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, it's under that banner. I don't know if it's like the main one by any stretch of the imagination.
Branches, yeah.
But
Satellite gym.
Yeah, her against Corey McKenna, like she had Corey McKenna in some pretty tough spots. Corey McKenna had the answer. She was able to reverse some of those submission attempts, but it was a tooth and nail. We were on Corey McKenna there. That fight, when that went to decision, like, rewatching, it's like flip a coin. And when you're flipping a coin, you want to have the plus 180, which we had in that spot. But my biggest question with Kay here is, she's on the OnlyFans scene. How hard, like, she hasn't fought since that McKenna fight. How hard is she focused on fighting at this point? How much, like, the OnlyFans that she does seems to be pretty popular. Like, is she more focused on that aspect of her life right now, or is she in the gym grinding every single day? Because I don't know how good of a grappler Jasmine is. It didn't really seem like she was dangerous when she got the fight to the mat against Polastri. Stand up, she has intangibles like a reach advantage, but there didn't seem to be any sort of pop. Her opponent didn't seem to have, like, really any marks on her face after the fight. Kay is the better all-around fighter. I don't even think it's really all that debatable. It just is this the best Kay Hansen showing up? I guess we'll find out. But yeah, it's been like 16 months since her last time out. We'll see. She's still super, super young. No, not 16 months. It was November 2020. So 14 months. We'll see if she's made some improvements here. But I think on the mat, the submission attempts, the submission abilities should really fall to Kay Hansen here. And Jasmine just on the feet, it's just nothing that she throws really is all that damaging. I think Kay just walks right through it, to be perfectly honest. What about you?
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna crush on both these girls. Cute girls, tough girls, and they're gonna go out there and they're gonna put on an excellent show. If you could bet like a fight of the night type thing, this would be so low key on a card like this, so low key. But honestly, they're both gonna go out there and get an exchange. Jasmine Jasudavicius doesn't really have much head movement. Like, she's there to get hit. She has the 5-inch reach advantage. But if you're not going to stick to the outside and pump that jab out, like, it just does you no good. She's down to scrap, and she's made that very clear. She likes to fight. But here's the problem with Jasmine is that she makes her they mentioned it on Contender Series, has no athletic background, doesn't wrestle, doesn't box, doesn't do jiu-jitsu, nothing, goes on a blind date. Her friend's on a Twitter date. She goes along with her friend, happens to meet her friend, brings another friend, Chris Prickett, who's a coach down here, and was an Olympic alternate for Team Canada in Olympic wrestling, happens to just meet Chris Prickett on this blind date. And then he says, come to the gym sometime. She comes to the gym. Oh, this looks like fun. And picks up wrestling and wrestled a little bit and makes her pro debut at age 30, right? She's turning in March, 2 months from now, she'll be celebrating her 33rd birthday. And she's making her UFC debut. She's so behind the 8 ball at this point. But can she beat girls on the regional scene? Absolutely she can. This Elise Reed fight is a split decision loss, her only pro loss. I think it was a bullshit decision. I thought she won that fight. The problem is that she's a defensive liability in the fight, gets hit a whole lot. Her wrestling is good, but not great. And when she can't rely on it, she gets in trouble. She's generally a bit of a fast starter. And the longer the fights go, her opponents figure it out a little bit. Against Julia Pilastri on the Contender Series, I'm behind her. A lot of people are behind her. So cool that she got the win. She got the decision victory, but she starts to fall apart later as the fight goes. And it's not a contract worthy performance, in my opinion. It was a good win, but it wasn't a solid win. It wasn't a I deserve to be in the UFC win. But when you're 32, you again, there's not time for this. Mm-hmm. So Dana brings her in the UFC and they toss her to Kay Hansen. And they know exactly what they're doing here. You have a girl that's about to turn 33 years old taking on a girl that's 22 years old. She's a hot prospect, and that's exactly what she is. She debuted in the UFC at 20. One girl's making her debut at 32. Kay Hansen fought Jinyu Frey at 20 years old, beats her with a triangle armbar, and then lost the Corey McKenna fight. McKenna's a top prospect as well, very young as well, but a very solid prospect. It's a good fight. It could go either way. You learn a lot from that. And then whereas you're speculating that 13 months off is a bad thing, I would say for a 20-year-old fighter, 13 months off is a great thing. She's not coming back a little more mature.
If you're full out training all the time.
And she's doing a lot of
OnlyFans stuff.
That's my
only question. That's my only question. Is she in the gym grinding like she was when she was 20?
Oh, because now she's 22. Yeah. No, I don't know. I would suggest that she was a better wrestler to begin with. She has the better jiu-jitsu to begin with. She had the better boxing to begin with. She had the better cardio to begin with. All of that, she was better in every facet of the game as a 20-year-old fighter. And now she's coming back a little more mature, a little more developed. Of course, she has other side distractions, I guess, but she's one of these I'm the best kind of girls. Like, she truly does believe that she's a top contender. She truly does believe that she should have won the Corey McKenna fight. So with that chip on her shoulder, I think she's going to be training hard for this spot. And for the UFC, how do you market a 33-year-old fighter who just made her UFC debut? Because by the time you put any resources in her, she's 35, she's 36, she's on her back 9. How do you market that? Tough. Hansen, the sky's the limit, right? She's got her own following, or fan base outside of fighting. She's a pretty girl. She's marketable. She's very vocal. She got in trouble for Invicta FC because she talks all types of stupid nonsense. She's got a little bit of drama, a little bit of character, and a decent skill set. A lot you can work with there. So it's a tough debut for Jasmine. It's a good fight for Kay Hansen to come back to. Shout out to Hunter Man. I believe he asked Jasmine's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu level. I believe she's a blue belt, but they're not doing gi Jiu-Jitsu, right? She had no base. She's come into wrestling. From
Case-
wrestling, you transition to mixed martial arts. You throw knees. Kay Hansen, meanwhile, good.
Her
at
numbers out, her submission props, Kay Hansen's are really good.
I would
That's
say,
why
I
Hunter
would
Man's.
say it's
That's why
live.
Hunter Man's asking you about it. I mean,
Yeah,
those
and
the
Hunter's
plus
got a good eye
350
for
at
stuff like
DraftKings
that.
Sportsbook.
It's the
There's
first fight on the
There's
card.
a plus 450 out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably have to dabble on that
I
because she
don't-
was
I
able.
don't
She was able to
disagree.
get Corey McKenna, who I think is a much better prospect, of course, because
Yeah.
she's also very young. She was able to put Corey had to really fight to get out of. She had like a rear naked choke on her at one point. Now she gave up, submission over position. She ended up giving up position, going for the submissions. But like you could see what she's able to do, and those numbers, those are pretty wide. I'm gonna probably be throwing a couple little beans on that one for sure. Any final thoughts there, bud?
No, I'd say that's about it. Again, we got 13 fights, 13 good fights. Unfortunately, the ones that we really like are at this point steamed over to the minus 500 range. But yeah, we're going to look for our top ticket again. And this time around, I can guarantee you, Paul, I will give you this at the very least. I will hedge out this time around. If my tickets are intact, I don't think I'm just going to let it ride against Francis Ngannou. And I shouldn't have let it ride against Calvin Kattar. But I learned from last week, and hopefully I can set up myself in a good position this time around. But of course, I really like Brandon Moreno. He's less than a 2-1 favorite. I really like Michel Pereira. He's less than a 3-1 favorite. Cody Saftic is your dog of the week. They're giving you a plus 170 marker. That's good stuff. Topuria, I absolutely love him. I think he's a top ticket guy. Barcelos, I love him. I think he's very high up there. Della, he's going to be very high up there. Gravely could look like $1 million and he could look awful. Frivola could get chin checked. Kay Hansen should roll. There's at least 6 good plays here. The rest of it, fluff. But if we get all that fluff, that's how you hit a PRP. And of course, pay-per-views have been good to us for the big long tickets. So let's make this one a good one, my friend.
Yeah, like all I'm gonna end up with money on Francis Ngannou, and you're gonna end up drinking a shoey on next week's episode. So I'm gonna get there. Cody Saftic plus 170. The buy decision is like plus 260 or so. That is definitely the most likely outcome. If Stamman pulls off the victory is by decision, but I'll probably just stick to the money line just in case, he catches him in a guillotine or something like that while they get down there. Ilia Topuria by submission plus 140 at DraftKings Sportsbook. I'd like myself a piece of that. Hopefully he fights the smart game plan. Gravely by KO. I'm gonna be on the lookout for a number on that. Frivola by sub plus 350. Is out there, and Hansen by sub. I like a lot of submissions, and I'm not even going to Rodolfo Vieira. As always on Twitter at Paul Shag, I'll post my entire card this week. But I like a lot more spots this week than I did last week. Did you go through and do the PRP there? Because I know you skipped over Rodolfo.
No, those
Vieira.
are the ones that I liked, but I'll hit you with the PRP.
All right, hit him with the PRP, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, so we're going to go with Ciryl Gane in the main event. We're going with Brandon Moreno, Michel Pereira, Cody Saftic is going to be dog number 1. We're going to go with Rodolfo Vieira, Ilia Topuria, who I really like, Raoni Barcelos, we like. We're going with Trevin Giles. One thing we forgot to mention is Michael Morales is a 79-inch reach. Oh, man, how do these 6-foot guys have 79-inch reaches? Could be a problem, but we are going to take the dog there. Dog number 2 will be Trevin Giles. We're going Jack Della, Tony Gravely, Silva, Gomez, Juarez, dog number 3. Matt Frivola, Kay Hansen. So there's 13 fights. We have 3 underdogs. Doesn't seem great. One of those underdogs I like in Cody Saftic. The other 2 I'm indifferent to. But again, I don't think we have to overforce any spots. Go with what we like. And again, there's some good action to be had here. So I'm optimistic about it. There's a LFA on the Friday as well. So maybe we dabble into that as like a pre-fight appetizer. But yeah, man, honestly, got to keep it optimistic, but I actually like this card. It's been a while since you've looked at an offering that you thought, you know what, there's very little ways that this goes wrong. Of course, in any sport, especially in MMA, something could go wrong, but hopefully we mitigate the damage the best we can and walk out of it profitable.
Yeah, there's been some people being like, oh, after the first 2 fights, this isn't exactly a great card whatsoever. And I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think they may not be the biggest, most high-profile people, but there's a lot of exciting prospects and people on the rise that maybe the casual people are not as aware of. But yeah, Topuria on the card, Raoni Barcelos, he's solid. There's a lot of very, very violent fights top to bottom. So I'm looking forward to UFC 270. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For Pat Mayo for doing all the sweet cuts behind the scenes, and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.